The screaming wind of Helios 7 cut through Kai Torres like frozen knives as he stumbled through the whiteout blizzard. His breath formed instant crystals that fell to shatter on his improvised face mask, and each step forward felt like pushing through concrete. The diplomatic escort mission had gone to hell 6 hours ago when pirates ambushed their convoy. Now he was alone on this frozen wasteland of a moon, his ship scattered in burning pieces across the ice field behind him. Kai's mechanical training had kept him alive this long. He'd salvaged what he could from the wreckage: a portable heater, some ration packs, a medical kit, and most importantly, an emergency shelter beacon. But the storm was getting worse, and his suit's heating system was already showing warning lights. That's when he saw the blood. Dark purple droplets led away from what looked like another crash site, barely visible through the driving snow. Kai's first instinct was caution. He was unarmed, exhausted, and in no condition for a fight. But the trail was fresh, and whoever was bleeding wouldn't last long in this weather. Following the trail, he found her collapsed behind a ridge of ice, partially buried by snow. At first glance, she was clearly not human. Tall, maybe 7 feet, with silver-gray skin that had an almost metallic sheen. Her build was powerful, muscular in a way that spoke of a lifetime of physical conditioning. Most striking were the 4 parallel scars that ran from her left temple down to her jaw, ritual markings of some kind. She was dying. Her breathing was shallow. Her lips, surprisingly similar to human ones, were blue with cold, and a nasty gash. Across her side was still seeping that dark purple blood. Kai didn't hesitate. He activated his emergency shelter beacon, a small device that would deploy a thermal barrier in about 20 minutes. Then he knelt beside the alien woman and began first aid. She stirred as he examined her wounds, golden eyes snapping open to fix on his face with startling intensity. She said something in a language full of harsh consonants and flowing vowels, her voice weak but still carrying an undertone of command. When he didn't respond, she tried to sit up, one hand moving toward what looked like a weapon at her belt. "Hey, easy there," Kai said softly, gently pressing her back down. "I'm trying to help." He pulled out the medical kit and showed it to her, then pointed to her wounds. Understanding flickered in those golden eyes, but she watched him with the wariness of a predator even in her weakened state. The shelter beacon activated with a soft hum, projecting a dome of energy around them that immediately began pushing back the wind and cold. Kai helped her move inside its perimeter, noting how she favored her left side. The gash was deep but not fatal if treated properly. As he worked, cleaning and sealing her wounds with the medical kit's biofoam, she observed his every movement. Her eyes never left his face, as if she was trying to solve some complex puzzle. When he shared his water with her, she looked genuinely shocked. When he draped his emergency blanket over her and activated a heating pack, placing it near her core to warm her faster, she actually recoiled as if he'd struck her. "It's okay," he murmured, keeping his voice gentle and his movements slow. "I'm not going to hurt you." Hours passed. The storm continued to rage outside their small bubble of warmth, but inside, they were safe. Kai shared his ration packs with her, noting how she ate with careful, precise movements that spoke of military training. She was clearly a warrior of some kind, and probably a high-ranking one given the elaborate armor he'd had to cut away to treat her wounds. But she was also studying him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Every act of kindness, sharing, food, adjusting the heater so she got more warmth, checking her bandages, seemed to surprise and disturb her more. She would mutter things in her own language, shaking her head as if arguing with herself. As exhaustion finally began to claim him, Kai settled against the far side of their shelter, giving her as much space as possible. He'd done what he could. Her wounds were treated, she was warm and fed, and the storm would eventually pass. Maybe then they could find a way to communicate properly, figure out how to get off this frozen rock. He was almost asleep when he heard her whisper something, in accented but clear human standard. "Why?" The word hung in the air between them, heavy with confusion and something that might have been distress. Kai opened his eyes to find her staring at him across the small space, her golden gaze intense and troubled. "Why what?" he asked softly. But she had turned away, curling into herself like she was protecting against more than just the cold. As Kai finally drifted off to sleep, he didn't see the way she watched him through the long hours of the night, her expression cycling through confusion, wariness, and something that might have been the beginning of understanding. Outside, the storm howled on, but inside their small shelter, two beings from different worlds shared warmth and began the slow process of learning that some bridges could be built across any distance. Kai woke to find Vex sitting upright, her golden eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made him immediately alert. The storm had weakened overnight, though wind still howled beyond their shelter's energy barrier. More importantly, she looked stronger. The biofoam had done its work and her color had improved dramatically. "You speak standard," she said without preamble, her accent thick but her words clear. "I have listened to your sleep words. You are human." Kai sat up slowly, keeping his movements non-threatening. "Yeah, I'm human. Kai Torres, mechanic with the Diplomatic Corps. And you are?" "Vexandra of the 4th Battle Pride, Kethmori warrior caste." She spoke the titles like they were carved in stone. "I was, am exile." Her jaw tightened at the admission. "What happened to your ship?" "The same raiders who destroyed yours, I think. They sought to capture me, bring me back for judgment. I chose death in battle instead." She gestured to her wounds. "Death chose differently." Kai noticed how she held herself, proud despite her injuries, like a queen forced to accept charity. "Well, I'm glad death was wrong. How are you feeling?" The question seemed to surprise her. She tilted her head, studying him again with that puzzled expression. "You ask after my welfare. Again. Why do you continue this charade?" "Charade?" Vex's eyes narrowed. "Among my people, when one saves another's life, creates a debt that cannot be repaid with mere gratitude. You have fed me, warmed me, healed me, sheltered me. By Kethmori law, I owe you everything." She straightened, despite the obvious pain it caused. "I do not understand why you pretend ignorance of what you have earned." Kai felt his stomach drop as understanding began to dawn. "Vex, I didn't save you to earn anything. I helped because you needed help." "Impossible." The word came out flat, final. "No being acts without seeking advantage. You have given me life itself, food, warmth, medicine, protection. The debt I owe cannot be measured." She shifted, moving closer despite her injuries. "I declare myself your soul bond, human Kai Torres. My body, my service, my very essence, all are yours by right of preservation." "No." Kai scrambled backward, his heart racing. "No, that's not, I don't want that." The rejection hit her like a physical blow. Vex's face went pale, her golden eyes wide with something between shock and humiliation. "You refuse me? Am I so damaged, so worthless that even my life debt holds no value? That's not what I meant." Kai reached toward her instinctively, then stopped himself. "Vex, where I come from, helping someone doesn't create a debt. We help because it's right, because we care about each other. I don't want you to give yourself to me out of obligation." "Then why?" The question came out raw, desperate. "Why tend my wounds? Why feed me from your own mouth? Why warm me with your body's heat and ask nothing in return? What manner of creature are you?" The genuine confusion in her voice made Kai's chest ache. How could he explain concepts that seemed as natural to him as breathing? "Because you were hurt, and I could help. Because leaving you to die would have been wrong. Because..." He struggled for words. "Because you matter. Your life has value just because you exist." Vex stared at him for a long moment, her expression cycling through disbelief, confusion, and something that might have been wonder. "In all my battles, all my travels, I have never encountered such thinking. Among the Kethmori, everything has a price. Every service demands payment, every kindness." She shook her head. "There is no kindness without expectation. There is now," Kai said softly. The words hung between them in the small space. Outside, the wind was finally beginning to die down, but inside their shelter, a different kind of storm was brewing. Vex looked at him as if he were some mythical creature, her warrior's composure cracking to reveal something vulnerable underneath. "I do not know how to exist without debt," she whispered. "Without purpose, without service to give meaning to my breath. If I am not bound to you by honor, then what am I?" "You're free," Kai said. "You're yourself, that's enough." But even as he said it, he could see she didn't understand. And despite his noble words, he couldn't ignore the way her proximity affected him, the way her strength and fierce beauty drew him like gravity. The situation was complicated in ways that had nothing to do with cultural differences and everything to do with the growing awareness between two beings learning they weren't as different as they'd thought. Vex was watching, him with those golden eyes, and for the first time since he'd found her, she looked truly lost. 3 days passed in careful negotiation of space, words, and growing awareness. The storm had finally broken, leaving behind a crystalline landscape that sparkled under Helios 7's distant sun. Their shelter had become less refuge and more shared home, with established routines that felt surprisingly natural. Vex proved to be a quick study in human customs, though she approached each lesson with the intensity of a military briefing. She learned that humans said please and thank you, that they asked permission before touching, that they shared meals as social ritual rather than mere sustenance. In return, she taught Kai about Kethmori culture, their rigid hierarchies, their honor codes, their belief that strength was the only true virtue. "My clan exiled me for showing mercy to defeated enemies," she said one morning as they shared breakfast rations. "They called it weakness, corruption of warrior spirit." Perhaps they were right. Were the enemies helpless, Kai asked. Wounded? Defeated? Their surrender was complete. She stared into the heating element's glow. "By rights, I should have executed them for the glory of victory. Instead, I let them live. My battle mother said I had forgotten what it meant to be Kethmori. Maybe you remembered what it meant to be alive." She looked at him sharply. "You speak riddles, human." "Not riddles. Just different truths." Kai moved closer, noting how she didn't flinch away anymore. "Your people aren't wrong about strength being important, but there are different kinds of strength. It takes more courage to spare a life than to take one. In your culture, perhaps. In any culture. Deep down, I think you know that." Their conversations grew longer, more personal. Vex told him about her childhood training, the brutal regimen that forged Kethmori warriors. Kai shared stories of his family, lost in a transport accident when he was young, and his choice to become a mechanic rather than a soldier. "You fix things that are broken," she observed one afternoon as she watched him repair their shelter's heating unit with salvaged parts. "That's the idea. And people? Do you fix people as well?" The question caught him off guard. He looked up to find her studying him with that intense focus that made his pulse quicken. "I try to help when I can." "Is that what you are doing with me? Fixing what is broken?" The air between them seemed to thicken. Kai set down his tools, suddenly very aware of how close she was sitting, how the afternoon light caught the silver in her skin. "You're not broken, Vex. I am exile, clanless, without purpose or honor." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "If that is not broken, what is? You're someone learning to be free, someone discovering that your worth isn't determined by other people's rules." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he touched her hand. "Someone who chose mercy over violence because it felt right, not because anyone told you to." Her golden eyes widened at the contact. "Kai, someone who matters," he continued, his thumb tracing over her knuckles. "Not because of what you can do or what you owe, but because you're you." Something shifted in her expression, surprise melting into something warmer, more dangerous. "Among my people, touch has meaning, significance." "What kind of meaning?" Instead of answering, she moved closer, her free hand coming up to trace the line of his jaw. Her touch was gentle despite her warrior's calluses, exploratory in a way that made his breath catch. Intimacy. she said softly. Connection. The beginning of bond-making. Vex, he should pull away, he knew. Should maintain the boundaries he'd been trying to establish. But her touch was setting him on fire, and the way she was looking at him suggested she was feeling the same heat. Is this part of your debt-free kindness? She asked, her voice taking on a teasing edge he'd never heard before. Or is this something else? Something else, he admitted. Good. And then she was kissing him. It started soft, tentative. Two people from different worlds learning each other's rhythm. But when Kai responded, when his hands came up to tangle in her silver hair, the kiss deepened into something hungrier, more urgent. She tasted like alien spices and possibility, and when she made a soft sound against his lips, every rational thought in his head scattered. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vex rested her forehead against his. This is not duty, she said, wonder in her voice. No, Kai agreed. This is choice. Her smile was like sunrise after endless night. Then I choose to learn more about human customs. Which customs? He asked, though his hands were already answering the question, tracing the strong lines of her shoulders, the curve of her neck. The ones involving pleasure given freely, she murmured against his ear. The ones that make you look at me like I am treasure instead of burden. What followed was gentle exploration, hands mapping new territories, while mouths learned different languages of desire. Vex approached intimacy with the same fierce attention she gave everything else, but now there was joy in it, wonder instead of obligation. When she arched beneath his touch, when she whispered his name like a prayer, Kai understood that they had crossed more than physical boundaries. They were building something neither of their cultures had words for. Connection born not of debt or duty, but of genuine recognition. Two beings choosing each other across the vast darkness between stars. The weeks that followed blurred together in a haze of growing intimacy and deepening connection. Their shelter had become a world unto itself, insulated from the harsh reality of their situation by walls of shared warmth and discovered affection. Vex learned to express desires rather than fulfill perceived duties, while Kai discovered that love could bloom even in the most unlikely circumstances. Their physical relationship grew more passionate, more confident. Vex's initial careful exploration gave way to bold claiming, her warrior's intensity channeled into making Kai gasp her name in the pre-dawn darkness. She was magnificent in her abandon, all silver skin and golden eyes and fierce tenderness that left him breathless. You taste like starlight, she whispered one morning, her lips trailing fire down his chest. Like freedom. Kai's response was lost in a moan as she discovered another sensitive spot, her mouth and hands working in perfect coordination. She was learning his body with the same dedication she'd once applied to weapons training, mapping every place that made him arch and shudder beneath her touch. When he returned the favor, when he showed her the slow burn of patient attention, she came apart in his arms like a work of art. The sight of her losing control, of walls built over a lifetime crumbling under waves of pleasure, was more beautiful than any sunset. I understand, now, she gasped afterward, curled against his side in the afterglow. Why humans speak of love as though it were magic. It transforms everything. Even exiled warriors, he teased, pressing a kiss to her temple. Especially exiled warriors. But their paradise couldn't last forever. The distress beacon Kai had activated weeks ago was still broadcasting, and eventually someone was bound to answer. They both knew it, though neither spoke of it aloud. Instead, they focused on the present, on shared meals and whispered conversations, on the way Vex laughed when Kai told her stories of his apprentice days, on the reverent way she touched the small scar on his shoulder from an old accident. The end came with the whine of atmospheric engines cutting through the morning stillness. Vex was on her feet instantly, her warrior instincts overriding everything else. Through the shelter's transparent walls, they could see 3 ships descending, sleek, predatory craft that Kai didn't recognize, but Vex clearly did. Keth Mori hunters, she said, her voice flat with resignation. They have found me. We can hide, Kai said desperately. The shelter's energy signature will not fool their sensors. Vex was already moving, gathering her salvaged armor with swift, efficient movements. They seek me, not you. Perhaps if I surrender willingly, like hell. Kai grabbed her arm, stopping her mid-motion. We're in this together. No. Her golden eyes blazed with sudden intensity. You do not understand. These are not merely soldiers. They are my former battle pride, led by Battle Mother Kexthan herself. She will execute me for the dishonor I have brought upon our name. If she finds you have bonded with me. Vex's face went pale. She will consider you contaminated. Alien corruption made flesh. Your death will not be quick. The ships were landing now, disgorging armored figures that moved with lethal precision. At their head was a figure that could only be Kexthan, taller than even Vex, her armor bearing the elaborate markings of high rank. There has to be another way, Kai said. There is. Vex turned to face him, her expression soft with love and hard with resolve. You will tell them I forced myself upon you, that I used alien wiles to corrupt your thoughts, that you were victim, not willing participant. I won't lie about what we have. You will if you want to live. The words came, out fierce, desperate. Please, Kai. Let me protect you as you protected me. Let this be my gift freely given. Before he could respond, the shelter's barrier flickered and died. Kexthan stepped through the opening, her presence filling the small space with the weight of absolute authority. She was magnificent and terrible, a warrior queen carved from living steel. Her gaze swept over them both, taking in their proximity, their obvious intimacy, the way they stood side by side rather than as captor and captive. When she spoke, her voice carried the thunder of judgment. Vexandra, you have fallen far from the warrior I trained. Battle Mother. Vex straightened, falling into military posture despite her lack of armor. I am prepared to face. Are you? Kexthan's attention shifted to Kai, and he felt the weight of that stare like a physical force. And what of your human pet? Does he understand the price of contaminating Kethmori blood? Kai stepped forward, ignoring Vex's sharp intake of breath. She didn't contaminate anything. What we have is real, and it's ours. If that threatens you, maybe you're the one who needs to evolve. The silence that followed was deafening. Several of the other warriors shifted hands to weapons, but Kexthan held them back with a gesture. Interesting, she said finally. The alien shows courage. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. She looked back at Vex. Is this the strength you found in exile, daughter? The will to choose death for affection? I choose nothing, Vex said quietly. I simply am. For the first time in my existence, I simply am. The sound of different engines filled the air. Human designs, Kai realized with a surge of hope. A rescue ship, finally answering his distress call. But would they arrive in time to matter? Kexthan smiled, an expression both beautiful and terrifying. Then let us see what choice brings, exiled daughter. Let us see if love proves stronger than honor. The confrontation everyone had been dreading was about to begin. The human diplomatic vessel Meridian settled onto the ice with practiced precision, its arrival shifting the balance of power in ways that made everyone recalculate their positions. Captain Elena Vasquez emerged with a small security team, her bearing professional but her hand resting casually near her sidearm. Kai Torres? She called out. We received your distress beacon. Here, Captain, Kai replied, not moving from Vex's side despite the Kethmori warriors surrounding them. Though the situation's gotten complicated, Vasquez took in the scene with experienced eyes, the alien warriors, the obvious tension, the way Kai and Vex stood together like a united front. I can see that. Battle Mother Kexthan, isn't it? Your reputation precedes you. As does yours, Captain Vasquez. Kexthan inclined her head fractionally. Though I wonder what brings a diplomatic vessel to respond to a mechanic's distress call. Mr. Torres was part of our escort mission when pirates attacked. We've been searching for survivors. Vasquez's tone remained neutral, but Kai caught the subtle emphasis on diplomatic. I trust there won't be any complications in retrieving our personnel? The standoff stretched taut as wire. Kexton's warriors waited for orders while the human security team maintained alert readiness. At the center of it all, Kai and Vex faced the moment that would determine their future. There need not be complications, Kexton said finally. If the human acknowledges his error in consorting with exile scum. No, Kai said firmly. What Vex and I have isn't an error. It's not contamination or corruption or whatever you want to call it. It's love, and I won't apologize for that. Vex squeezed his hand, her golden eyes bright with fierce pride. Nor will I apologize for choosing connection over conquest, Battle Mother. You taught me to be strong. This is what my strength looks like. Then you choose exile from our people forever, Kexton said. You choose to become nothing, to exist without clan or honor or purpose. I choose to become myself, Vex replied. I choose to build something new. The words hung in the crystalline air heavy with finality. Then, to everyone's surprise, Kexton began to laugh, a sound like breaking crystal that held both sorrow and something that might have been pride. Perhaps, she said when the laughter faded, exile was always your destiny, daughter. Perhaps the weakness I sought to burn from you was actually a different kind of strength. She looked between Kai and Vex, her expression unreadable. You are no longer Kethemori, but perhaps you are something else, something that might bridge the gap between warrior and healer, conquest and compassion. She turned to her warriors. We leave. The exile has chosen her path. Just like that? Vasquez asked, clearly surprised by the anticlimactic resolution. Honor has been satisfied, Kexton replied. She is dead to us, but she lives. That is sufficient. Her gaze returned to Vex one last time. Do not waste this gift, exile daughter. Make it mean something. The Kethemori ships lifted off in a whirlwind of ice and engine wash, leaving behind only silence and possibility. Vasquez approached them cautiously. Well, she said, this should make for an interesting diplomatic report. Are you both all right? We're better than all right, Kai said, his arm tightening around Vex's waist. We're free. 6 months later, the observation deck of Station Harmony offered a spectacular view of the binary star system they were orbiting, but Kai found himself more interested in watching Vex work. She stood before a mixed group of human and alien diplomats. Her silver hair caught back in a practical braid, her bearing confident without being aggressive. The key to understanding Kethemori negotiation tactics, she was saying, is recognizing that they view everything through the lens of strength. This doesn't mean they only respect force. It means they respect competence, integrity, and the courage to stand by your principles. One of the younger diplomats raised a hand. But how do we establish that respect without appearing weak? Vex smiled, the expression transforming her entire face. You show them that your strength comes from choice, not compulsion. That you help others not because you must, but because you choose to. That, to them, is the strongest position of all. After the session ended, she joined Kai at the observation window. He slipped his arms around her from behind, feeling her relax into his embrace. Good session? He asked. Very. The new cultural exchange protocols are coming along well. Your diplomatic corps is surprisingly adaptable. They have a good teacher. She turned in his arms, her golden eyes warm with contentment. We make a good team, don't we? The best, he agreed, then kissed her softly. Ready for the next assignment? Always. Where are we heading this time? Keftar Prime. Apparently there's been some tension between the mining consortium and the indigenous population. They need mediators who understand both industrial efficiency and cultural sensitivity. Vex grinned, the expression holding all the fierceness of her warrior heritage channeled into new purpose. Sounds perfect, though I still think you only take these assignments because you enjoy fixing things. Maybe, Kai admitted. But this time I'm not fixing anything. We're building something new together, something better, she agreed. Outside the viewport, stars wheeled in their ancient dance, witness to love that had grown from duty into choice, from obligation into freedom. Two beings from different worlds, united not by debt or honor or cultural expectation, but by the simple revolutionary act of choosing each other. And in that choice they had found not just love, but home. The end.